Wow, I love hearing those sounds of community. Yeah, it's nice. Well, welcome everyone. My name is Adam Stonebraker, and this is the second night of our householder retreat. Maybe some of you are here because for sit and sangha, and you're surprised, but that we're not in a circle. But everyone's welcome here, and we'll actually do a little discussion later as well. So make the sit and sangha people feel at home. Yeah. So I thought we'd start with a meditation as we normally do. But I'd like to teach a simple mantra that I is very close to my heart. Um, very simple. It's one word, but it's actually very traditional to the Thai forest school. So it's what Ajahn Chah taught, and my teachers who were students of Ajahn Chah, they taught me, and yeah, a lot of it's very tied to the Thai forest tradition, and it's really simple. It's Bud Do. So it's kind of like Buddha, but with an O on the end. Bud Do, Bud hyphen Dho. And the way it works is sort of like when you're sitting and your mind kind of goes off, starts going down a storyline or starts narrating experience, doing something. You just notice that and you breathe in Bud and you exhale Do. And the word just means awake. It's a Thai word that means awake. You don't do it out loud, you do it to yourself. And for me, it feels like home. So after you do it for a while, you begin to associate coming back and the relaxation of coming back with this word Budo. And it has this feedback loop of positive relaxation, ease, and it develops over time. And I like to smile too. You do it? Because when our mind gets caught or when we start to go down a storyline or something like this, and we notice it, that's actually a really good thing. There's so many people who I know who like, I'm just so bad at meditating. My mind's all over the place, or I keep getting caught in stories and things. Um, and the thing that's missed a lot of times is that you're noticing getting caught. I noticed that buzz with my microphone. Okay, we talk in it. So that's really, really cool. That means we're developing something. And so if we associate getting caught in a story with, oh, I'm getting caught again, like judgmental, that creates kind of a negative thing. No, we don't want that. But if we notice we're getting caught and we Budo, then the mind begins to associate coming back, that positive, awake, present. Sounds pretty good, right? Right. Budo. I'll do some light guidance and then remind. But I also like to think of the Budo as it ties us to that lineage. John's very, very much, it has a lot of affinity for that. My lineage. So we're going back hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years, and then all the way back to the Buddha. So so being comfortable, take a little bit, move, breathe. Part of the practice is just orienting. Connection. like a tree with roots deep in the earth, grounded. But then also above the dirt, the tree aspires towards the sun. So there's this lifting, in a rigid way. Trees still have that ability to sway. Settle, you might notice how the energy of the day is still in the body. Particularly more. This is something that we use the whole time. A few times in a row if you need it. Sleep. You take a little tour of the body, noticing any places of tension, any opportunities to let go. And relax. There's places that don't want to relax. Okay. To be ready, just embrace. Good. Notice how you experience the body. How is it that you know that you're in a body? With an indicator. Like you didn't notice that already. Body is breathing. Breathing light. How do you know? Does it feel experienced? Just combine this sort of global awareness of the body and the breath. Like the breath is moving throughout the entirety of the body. Inhale expands the body, that back to the body. Almost feel like every pore is taking in air, every pore is releasing. Seeing the relationship of the internal and the external. Body meets the external environment. Deepen into our awareness. Perhaps that boundary is not so solid. Feeling out into space. Breathing into space. Creates any instability. You need some more groundedness. You can always come back to the breath. Deep. heart. Difficult to differentiate between metta, love, and awareness, heartful, similar they are, if not the same thing. you all so much. We'll take a little break here. Say 6:37. And we'll keep it quiet. Doesn't have to be completely silent. Functional speech is okay. But I like for Sangha to be able to whisper to each other. Okay, thank you. All right. Well, my plan tonight is to just review a little bit of the what we talked about last night, and then have a discussion about it, and then talk about something different after that. So we'll see how that goes. So what we're exploring this during this retreat is what we call the five spiritual faculties. And the word faculty actually is a translation of this word indriya, Indriya, something like that, which is a reference to the god Indra, who is the sort of dominant god of the Rig Veda, which is the Buddha taught at a time where the Vedas were kind of the predominant scripture and religion, the Vedic religion. So he used a lot of Vedic language in his teaching. And so the idea behind the five indriyas or the five faculties is that these faculties, these qualities, we can even call them virtues, should dominate the mind in a sense. Don't really like the word dominate, but they should be the predominant virtues of the mind. And so just to review, the first one, there. The first one is called sada. It's usually translated as faith. We can think of it as confidence, or um, there's other ways we could define it or translate it. But it's much different than sort of a blind faith. There's not a really good English translation for the word sada, but we'll talk about that here a little bit more. The second one is viriya, which is energy or perseverance. It's sort of like the what keeps us going on the path. I'll talk about that a little bit later. The third one is mindfulness. Sati is the Pali word. The fourth one is samadhi, which is usually translated as concentration, but that's not a great translation of it. I like the word gatheredness, kind of bringing everything together into one place. Concentration is, I have a bad history with that word from my childhood, so it's a personal thing. And then the last one is panya, which is Pali. You might know the Sanskrit word prajna, but that means wisdom or discernment, specifically discernment around what's skillful, what's unskillful, what's wholesome and what's unwholesome. Skillful being things that lead to awakening, wholesome being something that qualities that lead to awakening, unwholesome, unskillful lead away from awakening. And so wisdom helps us to discern what's leading to awakening and what's not. And so the reason I want to kind of talk about faith is because I know a lot of us have probably a mixed relationship with that word. Um, I think I was a theology student in college and studied Christian theology. And I always remember Hebrews 11:1, which says faith is hope in things unseen. um, which is not the faith that we talk about in Buddhism. Um, the idea there is that there's this blind faith. You should just kind of take people for their word. Where the Buddha was very clear, like, don't believe what I say, just try it, see if it works for you. And if it doesn't, then don't practice it. He's not attached to it. But what's really interesting about the Buddha is that he was very confident in what he was teaching, that he knew that he was really a very practical teacher. He wasn't a philosopher, he wasn't a theologian, he wasn't a metaphysician. He was a practical, spiritual technique teacher. That's what he did. So if you read the suttas, if you read the teaching, everything he was talking about, everything he was doing, everything he was pointing towards were practices that lead to awakening. That's his only concern. And so when you read the suttas, um, uh, if you put a metaphysical lens over it or a philosophical lens over it, then it's not the intention of the Buddha. Later, in the development of Buddhism, hundreds and thousands of, 1,000 years after the Buddha lived, he kind of became this metaphysical person in some cultures. But he made it very clear he was just a human who realized, who discovered this path that he was sharing with us so that we could all become awakened. It's also very clear that we all have the potential to awaken, and these faculties are an important part of that practice. If you read the suttas, you start to see the humanness of the Buddha. There's one sutta that I was looking at the other day where he was supposed to teach um, to this group, and he had a bad back. I don't know if you knew this, but the Buddha had a back that was always hurting him. That's why a lot of times you see him in this pose where he's lying. Um, but Ananda, one of his attendants, he says, I'm supposed to teach tonight. He's like, but my back is hurting too much. Can you teach for me? So you see the instances like this of the Buddha throughout, and I really love those human things because it gives us confidence and faith that we also can do the same thing. When the Buddha becomes this metaphysical thing, it becomes unreachable. It becomes this thing that we can look at and becomes this character to worship, but that was never the intention of the Buddha. And this is the original kind of, from what I gather, the original intention behind this teaching of faith, of confidence, is really about faith in or confidence in the awakening of the Buddha. That's really what it's about. It's about, oh, the Buddha awakened to the true nature of things. I can too. And so the faith there is just this kind of initial interest, this kind of spark, and it gets us to a certain point. But if any of you know, if you've ever had faith in something, everything constantly changes. And so at some point we'll be let down. At some point we'll be let down if we only have faith. That's why we have the other four faculties. That's why we have the wisdom to discern what I should have faith in, the energy to keep me going, the mindfulness to really know what's happening, the concentration that has that gatheredness that helps me along the path. So the Buddha had this simile of the raft, talking about how we use a practice, we use a teaching until it gets us over the river. We don't keep carrying the raft with us. We leave it at the shore and we keep going. That's kind of how I think of faith. Faith is like, it gets us there and it can keep us going to a certain extent, but if all we have is faith, then it's bound to disappoint, especially if that faith involves a person or a teacher. um, they will eventually let us down, guaranteed, almost guaranteed. So, and I don't mean to knock teachers. I just mean that they'll let us down in the sense if we give up our own agency to somebody else, at some point we'll see their humanness, and whether, every teacher is human. And if we're aware of that person as a human and not extra human, then it won't be a big deal when we see their humanness. But if we're putting too much faith in that person and we see their humanness, it can really, um, the fall is long and can be hard. So the faith comes here. It's in our own awakening, our own potential to awaken. So I just want to kind of open it up, just to sort of see if anybody here wants to share any insight or questions around this topic of faith, or, again, we can also use confidence or conviction is the word I was searching for earlier, or your experience of faith or how you think of this. If anybody wants to share, I like to have discussions about this. Sure.
Microphone.
When I was younger, I had an experience where I became a born again Christian.
Mm,
I didn't speak in tongues, but I went to places where people did speak in tongues. We were singing Christian music all the time. I was elated. And I don't know where I'm going with this, but just to say, I had tremendous faith and it was uplifting. I saw the world through different eyes and it was beautiful.
mm,
And in the end, I lost my faith. And that was kind of a hard fall. But I felt like I really did come to the ground and got more grounded when I lost that.
mm,
And I don't know why I wanted to share that, but I had that moment of absolute beautiful faith.
mm. Thank you. I think a lot of us have had that. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. We try and alternate between live audience and Sangha. But are you seeing anyone? Because Eric here in the center does have a comment.
This is Robin on Zoom. No one has raised their hand yet. If you would like to share or have a comment, you can use the reactions to put your hand up. Otherwise, for now, we'll go to Eric. Thank you.
Great.
So this topic of faith is really big for me
Mm,
because, and it's tied to hope, and or it's actually for me it's very different than hope.
mm,
Um, how do I put this? So I completely agree with you that if we put our faith or hope, anything of that nature, in anything that's you know um, temporary, conditioned, contrived,
mm,
you know, anything of the human realm, pretty much, then yeah, we'll certainly be disappointed. But what the faith that's developed is the result of my formal practice and life practice is something that is, what we call unshakable,
mm,
because it's not in anything conditioned. It's not in a person or a group or a circumstance or anything being any kind of particular way at all, or ever being any particular way. It's in literally what I call the unfolding,
mm,
which is always only right here and right now. It's a succession of that. But if I'm paying attention, then that shows me everything I need to know about how to be in relationship with life right now.
mm,
And it frees me up from having to try and anticipate life,
mm,
or plan it, because I always know that I'm going to be shown everything I need to know when I need to know it, and kind of just trust the process. And when I'm able to just really release into that, um, it carries me. Yeah. And that's just all I wanted to say is that, that there does exist faith that's can't disappoint,
Mhm.
you know, but it's not in anything of the scene.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I agree. And it's really a beautiful thing about practice, you know, this is when kind of faith turns into confidence because you know beginning you have to have faith to kind of to start to practice, but then the fruits start to come and the unfolding, like to use your word, starts to come, and then we start to be able to trust that the universe, you know, that there's this infinite unfolding if that we get in the way of, and we just kind of start to ride the wave of the unfolding, and then we trust in that. Yeah. You know, I know so many, teachers. John is one of them. My teachers, Kidasaro and Tanisra, who have lived on Dana for, Kidasaro and Tanisra lived on Dana. Since they were monastics, and they're well taken care of. They have no doubt in their mind that they'll be taken care of going forward. Totally off the generation, or the generosity of others. John, the same. He's lived off Dana for, he talks about when he's told me the stories of when he first decided to go all Dana. There's many people who do that. There's this faith, there's this trust in the unfolding of the universe. And you kind of get in line and in the way of that unfolding. The confidence just builds and builds and builds and grows and grows. And you can't fall too far, because the practice is there to save you. Yeah. Yeah, it's beautiful. Thank you for bringing that up. Yeah. Oh,
Robin?
Zoom's here.
Yeah, we have someone on Zoom.
Hi. So my question is regarding faith as a spiritual experience versus an intellectual experience. Because what I hear a lot from other religions and people say that if I try to understand, it is not faith.
Hmm.
Because if faith is beyond understanding. So can you tell a little bit more? I don't know if I was clear about my statement.
I think yeah, I understood. I understand what you're saying. There's yeah, how this happens is a mystery. Like the intellect, it can't wrap itself around the mystery because it doesn't make sense to the mind or to the logical mind. So but I think there's also, in Buddhism, John talked about it last night. There is this thing called verified faith, where you have faith in something, and then the fruits come, and that verifies the faith, your faith, and that's when it kind of becomes confidence. So I don't think it's one or the other. I think it's a conspiracy of all of these things coming together and resulting in this trust in the unfolding of your path, or the practice, or in this growing of confidence. And so yeah, I think it's both. I don't think it's neither. I think there is an intellectual part, but at a certain point um, it can't be made sense of. There's a ultimate letting go that is beyond the intellect. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you. This microphone's headed to Bill. Hold it close, okay?
Yes. My name's Bill, and I even find it hard at times to say my name. I like to say we or something, because the first thing that connected me with a sense of oneness was um, in a little Buddhist writing by a Buddhist monk in Sri Lanka, It's talking about the interconnectedness of all life.
Hmm.
So I really have this, and it almost leads into a sense of a God. I never liked the word God, although I can accept it now also. But whatever name people care to call this great spirit or something, that we are one, and that even what we do, we may say at times. I was doing a practice at the Zen Center once where we say, I avow my ancient twisted karma, but uh, but it's not really mine. It's the oneness. It's
Mm.
we're all connected, and we are one. So this sense of faith, I really, I really believe or feel that I know that we are one, and yeah, maybe you could comment on this. It almost leads into a people who use the word think of a deity may be doing the same thing in a certain way.
Hmm. Yeah, this truth of interconnection is a really beautiful thing and something that we're waking up to constantly. And that's another thing that helps grow confidence is this interconnection. And I think, when we have a spiritual experience, like even if it happens as in a evangelical Christian church or in a Buddhist monastery or in um, a mosque or wherever it happens, that experience it transcends the religion. And so we all have these experiences of feeling that interconnection and that oneness. And in many ways, all these religions are kind of pointing towards that, and a god or a deity or something like that is just a symbol of that greater truth. And when we tap into that, we experience it, that we feel that interconnection, which grows the confidence, which grows the faith. But yeah, I think it's a really beautiful. Thank you for that beautiful share.
Robin, is there anybody on Zoom that you're seeing that wants to share? Because we have two friends.
Not not yet.
And can you start with your name? Not sure who was first.
And just make sure to keep the microphone close so that we can hear you on Zoom. It's really hard to hear sometimes.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jenny. And when we're talking about faith and confidence as it relates to the faculties, are we talking about something that is unshakable and sustained, or as a practitioner, can it come and go? Because that's how I experience it. And some days I'll have just this like deep feeling of it, and then some days I feel like it's left the building. So that is what I'm asking to you. Like, what does that feel like, and is it practical for it to be sustained?
Hmm. Yeah, I think it kind of goes back to this, if we're talking about through the faculties, this balancing of all the faculties. And so it can't just be faith. There's other things that come in to help support it. But yeah, it wavers. I'd wake up some mornings and I'm like, what am I doing with this meditation thing? But I have confidence in the practice, and so I just sit anyway. And it always it always it comes back to support me. So yeah, it comes and goes, but I don't even know if it comes and goes. It's just things come into the mind and cloud it. I think it's more that. I think it's always there, it's just life and ourselves gets in the way of it gets in the way of it. So it's like the sun behind the clouds is always shining. Some days are sunny, some days are stormy, but we always know the sun's back there. Sort of one of those things for me. And so I have confidence in that. Like, yeah, I know if I sit, it might really suck for the 45 minutes I'm sitting or the 30 minutes, the 20 minutes, whatever it is. But I know over time this is the best thing for me. So I think that's it. And then and a lot of times we can rely or draw from the faith of other people, or the Buddha. That's my Buddha statue. I look at it and I say, all right, the Buddha had confidence in me. Like the Buddha didn't want to teach, became enlightened. And he was like, I don't, they're not going to understand this. And he was encouraged to go out and teach. And so ended up teaching for 45 years. And he taught because he had confidence in us that we would be able to do it. And so I think of that like, wow, the Buddha had confidence in me to be able to wake up. That's why he taught. So that keeps me going as well. So, or my teachers, my teachers are like, John, Kidasaro, one of my teachers, he's just so devoted to practice, and it's really beautiful to see. And so having teachers and spiritual friends are really helpful in supporting that faith as well. So yeah, I think it takes a village. But yeah, I think there's a reliance we can have on the practice.
Thank you.
Yeah. Sure, yeah. Yeah.
I'm Vivian, and I have a question about having a spiritual teacher and what that means exactly. Because and I've brought this question up before here, but it doesn't leave me alone, which is the strongest desire to find a human being who embodies the bodhisattva or whatever you want to call that, who really embodies that. And so far, I've taken those big falls because I have kind of a devotional nature. And when I even imagine that I'm close to finding, I'll just say my teacher or whatever, I get ecstatic. Like I just like don't even like, it's like I'm already there or something. But it's still an external, I don't think I need to say anymore. I think you know what I'm talking about. I just don't know how to let go of, it's like I can't let go of that longing. It just won't leave me alone. Even having been beaten up, basically, by being devotional to the wrong teachers a few times. It won't leave me. So I don't know what to do with it. And I'm hoping that this is the first time I've been in this kind of with Buddhist teachers. So slightly different, but I still am looking for my teacher. And I don't know why. So I don't know what my question is, but if you could comment on that.
Sure. Yeah, I think having a teacher is really important. And the way the Buddha framed it was um, he framed it as a Kalyana, what he said, Kalyana Mitta, which is usually translated as a spiritual friend. And so it's not a teacher in the sense of they're giving you a curriculum and you're doing it. It's more of like somebody who can give you an outside perspective and kind of point out your own neurosis. But there's another translation of Kalyana, which I actually like better, which is beautiful. So beautiful friend. And really the Buddha was always pointing towards beauty. We can think of it like that. And a lot of times in the suttas, Kalyana is translated as good. but good and beautiful are completely different, but that's another subject. You know, I have that same thing that you have, and I don't have it as strongly anymore. I always go back to the Buddha's death and his final instruction, because he was surrounded by his closest students, and they were crying and weeping, and um, I can't remember which one. Sariputta, I think, was like off at the vihara, like weeping and crying, and Buddha was like, "Where's Sariputra?" And they're like, "Oh, he's crying, he's off crying." He's like, "Go get him." And he said, don't cry, don't cry for me." Um, and he basically said his final message was, "Work out your salvation on your own." Is basically what he said. Because he didn't pass on, he didn't have a lineage holder, he didn't hand off his teaching to somebody else. He basically said the work is in here. It's with you and yourself. It's like, don't grasp onto me, and then he sort of faded away. So I can only use myself and my own experience. My longing and searching for a spiritual teacher, what I was actually looking for, and I'm not saying this about you, I'm saying this about me, what I was looking for was somebody to do the work for me. That's what I was doing. And I found that just through my own introspection. And it took a lot of deep digging to understand that. But and I think how that came about was having teachers who wouldn't give in to that impulse that I had. They were always pointing back to me, pointing back to me, pointing back to me. Never always answering my questions with a question to me. Always, it was always that. There was always a challenge, always a challenge. It was always pointing back to like here, working out my own awakening right here. So I don't know if that it
Very
resonates or
helpful.
applies, but yeah, that's how it was for me. Yeah, thank you. Okay. Well, that was a rich conversation. Thank you all. Faith. So the next spiritual faculty is called viriya, which is translated as perseverance or energy is usually how you hear it. And viriya is really, what keeps us going, on the path. But also think of it as effort, and I like to relate it to right effort in the Eightfold Path. Right effort is in there. And as far as the five spiritual faculties balancing one another, we could see how too much energy would be a problem, right? So if there's too much energy, turns into this project, striving for awakening, this project of awakening. And then it can be balanced by discernment or mindfulness or something else. But energy is really, really important. And energy and faith go together in many ways. So I remember when I first encountered Buddhism, I got excited. There was like this, and I immediately had this faith, like I want to try this because awakening is there. Like awakening sounded really good. So that was that faith. Faith was accompanied by an energy, right? There's like this spark. And if we start to practice, well, what initially got me really interested in awakening was kind of the first thing, like, because I was suffering a lot and I liked this idea, like my whole life was just suffering. And then I liked this idea of waking up. And actually the First Noble Truth was really attractive to me, like this suffering. It's like, oh, wow, everybody suffers, and not just me. which helped me feel like I belonged to humanity. But I got involved in Zen, and I really loved the aesthetic of Zen. And I loved the chanting and the forms and the rows and the stick, all the stuff. And which kind of gave me a lot of faith. But Zen practice is really, really, really difficult. It's really hard. And that fascination and faith alone, it faded real quickly. It faded real quickly. And what it took after that was this perseverance and this diligence and this energy to move forward in the practice. And so they come to balance each other out. So there's this energy to begin, and this kind of this, we call it like a preliminary effort to set out on this path of discovery. Yeah. And then there's this effort that's kind of that I faced in that when it became difficult. And so this energy that pushes even harder to kind of move through the difficulty. Yeah. And when you move through the difficulty, there's these gauntlets we have to like go through. And then, on the other side is more faith, more awakening. The fruits of the practice were okay. And so the energy that the Buddha talked about, or the effort that the Buddha talked about, it's like, what's required right now? What is needed right now? Do I need just a little soft touch? Do I need less? Do I need to really push it? Do I need to like move through something? And the really difficult things, they take some effort. And so there's different degrees, there's different ranges of energy and effort. And I think that's really exemplified in one of my favorite suttas called the Vitakka Santana Sutta. And I just find it really interesting how the Buddha talked about effort. So this is in this sutta. It's kind of long, but I'm not going to read the whole thing. I'll try to keep it briefer. But it illustrates how the Buddha saw effort and the degrees of effort. So he's talking about here the Vitakka Santana Sutta. It translates as the removal of distracting thoughts. We all want that, right? We sit down to meditate and we're just distracted. And we're told to just be mindful of them. But the Buddha's here saying, this is how to remove them. So here it says, here, monks, when a monk is giving attention to some sign, so like an object of meditation, like the breath or something, and owing to that sign, there arise in him evil or unwholesome thoughts connected with desire, hate, and delusion, then he should give attention to some other sign connected to what is wholesome. So the first thing you should do is just turn your attention to something wholesome. If an evil or unwholesome thought arises, just think of something wholesome. That's the first step. A little touch, little light touch. If while they're giving attention to some other sign connected with what is wholesome, there still arises in them evil, unwholesome thoughts connected with desire, hate, and delusion, then he should examine the danger in those thoughts. So that's the second one. Like the first one is, oh, I'll just switch my attention. The second one is, wow, this thought is causing me some danger. And I love so the simile for the first one, just switching the thought, is it says, just as a skilled carpenter or his apprentice might knock out, remove, or extract a coarse peg by means of a fine one, so too, when a monk gives attention to some other sign connected with what is wholesome, their mind becomes steadied, internally composed, and unified. So it's just this switching. The second one, seeing this thought as actually dangerous, the simile is this. Just as a man or a woman, young, youthful, and fond of ornaments, would be horrified, humiliated, and disgusted if the carcass of a snake or a dog or a human being were hung around his or her neck. So too, when a monk examines danger in those thoughts, his mind becomes steady, internally composed, unified, and concentrated. It's a little bit more harsh, right? So the dangerous thought is like wearing a dead animal around your neck. So the third step, so a little bit more energy. The third step is if the evil and unwholesome thoughts arise, they should try to forget those thoughts and should not give attention to them. So you should just not just switch or examine, but you should try to forget those thoughts completely. The simile here is just as a man with good eyes who did not want to see forms that had come within range of sight would either shut his eyes or look away. So it's a little bit more of a heavy touch. The fourth, so a little bit more energy, a little bit more effort. The fourth, if while he's trying to forget these thoughts and is not giving attention to them, there still arise in him evil, unwholesome thoughts connected with desire, hate, and delusion, then he should give attention to stilling the thought formation of those thoughts. When he gives attention to stilling the thought formation of those thoughts, then any evil, unwholesome thought connected with desire, hate, or delusion. So this is like trying to calm the thoughts down. So it takes a little bit more concentration, a little bit more energy. And the simile is just as a person walking fast might consider, why am I walking fast? What if I walk slowly? Why am I walking slowly? What if I sat down? Why am I sitting down? What if I laid down? Why am I laying down and not sleeping? Why did I sleep? So it's this gradual calming down. The last resort, if you're having these thoughts, the fifth one. So if these thoughts are still arising, there still arise evil, unwholesome thoughts connected with desire, hate, and delusion, then with his teeth clenched and his tongue pressed against the roof of his mouth, he should beat down, constrain, and crush the mind with the mind. Just as a strong man might seize a weaker man by the head or the shoulders and beat him down, constrain him, and crush him, so too, when his teeth clench and his tongue pressed against the roof of the mouth, a monk beats down, constrains, and crushes mind with mind. Then his mind becomes steadied internally, composed, unified, and concentrated. So there's this, all right, the thoughts are coming up. Try this thing. Oh, that doesn't work. Try this. That doesn't work. Try this. That doesn't work. Try this. And the last resort is this thing to really force the thoughts. So these are different degrees of effort and energy that are being involved here. And so it's really interesting. It sounds very aggressive, but there comes some times when you're having things arise and you just have to say no, no, no. I'm not going to do this anymore. Or in relationship with people, you feel a reaction come up. There has to be a forceful thing where it's like, I am not going to act like this right now. I am not going to have the same reaction I always have. I'm not going to give into the anger. I'm not going to give into the fear. I'm not going to give into the worry. That's, sometimes it takes that amount of effort to do it. And so what is right effort? What is the energy that's needed in the moment? And so we can use various things to kind of up the energy of practice and to keep the energy going. And this is something I talk about all the time. And one of the main things that can motivate us, that will bring energy to our practice, is contemplation of impermanence, or the contemplation of death. This is what the Buddha recommended. Just contemplating our own death, this limited time that we have on this planet to awaken, is something that brings about an energy. In Pali, we say samvega, a sense of urgency in our practice. And that is the Buddha's antidote to sloth and torpor, low energy. but also it brings this motivation to our life, where every single moment becomes ultra, ultra, ultra precious. Everything we do, there's all the faculties there. There's attention, there's mindfulness, there's energy, there's faith, there's all of these things right there in that contemplation. So something that the Buddha encouraged us to do every day was to contemplate what he called the 5 subjects for frequent recollection. And they're basically just recollections of impermanence, of truths. I am of the nature to age. I have not gone beyond aging. I am of the nature to sicken. I have not gone beyond sickness. I am of the nature to die. I have not gone beyond dying. All that is mine, beloved and pleasing, will become otherwise, will become separated from me. I am the owner of my karma, heir to my karma, born of my karma, related to my karma, abide supported by my karma. Whatever karma I shall do, good or for ill, of that I will be the heir. These are the 5 subjects of frequent recollection. And it sounds almost morbid in a way, of course, from a conventional sense. But it's incredible how much joy this brings. It really, it brings a ton of joy when you begin to contemplate. You know, every night I go to bed, I contemplate dying as I fall asleep, and the amount of joy that brings is really incredible. There's this kind of Burmese tradition coming out of Buddhism, where they recommend the greatest way to bring joy to your life is to contemplate your own death at least 5 times a day. And there's actually this app that I have on my phone, and it's based on that principle, and it's called We Croak. And so 5 times a day, you'll get a little ping, and it just says, "Remember, you're going to die." And then it has a quote about death on it. And every time I look forward to and it brings me so much joy when I see it, because it's a funny concept. But actually, it's really interesting. You know, we spend so much time running away or ignoring impermanence. You know, the main thing that creates suffering, the Buddha's main teaching, the Four Noble Truths, what causes suffering is clinging to that which is impermanent, and that the primary thing in our lives that's impermanent is our life, and that's what we cling to. And so when that becomes kind of all pervasive and a feature of how we experience the entirety of our lives, so much joy comes. We begin to cherish every single moment, and that brings a lot of energy, a lot of viriya. And so that's one way, and one of the Buddha's recommended ways to counteract low energy. But really, you know, it kind of all comes down to what's needed in the moment. What's needed in the moment. And so energy paired with wisdom, you know, we'll talk about wisdom's the last faculty. Wisdom helps us to discern what's needed right now in this moment. And so the faculties are all kind of cultivated one at a time, but also together. So I'll end it there. Thank you all for your attention, and hopefully this was helpful for you. It was helpful for me, hearing from you, and I loved our discussion.